Yeah, well, one of the other things that I was looking at your work, because I first was familiar with you because of Bag of Lies, you know?
Oh, okay.
Yeah,
Yeah.
and then and then I think I briefly saw you at Winterfilm in passing, and then I saw that you were attached to a bunch of different work. And
Mm,
one of the similarities that I kind of picked up about somebody who's more specialized, and although you do acting as well, and we can talk about that, uh, you're also a production designer and an art designer on most of the things that you're in, as well as other people projects. Do I got that right?
yeah. Yeah, because I feel like I tend to kind of only act in stuff that I'm like crew connected with as well. So, yeah.
Is it mostly friends, or do you get cold called to do things too?
It's mostly my core group of friends and filmmakers and whatnot. It's like, hey, we're doing this thing. You wanna help? I'm like, yeah, okay, I'm free that weekend.
I mean, you've been doing
Yeah.
this for like what, 6 or 7 years? This filmmaking in general,
Um, it's more than
depending on where you
10.
want to count it.
Yeah, it's more than professionally, more than 10. So probably like 11 or 12, but
Really,
15 overall. Yeah.
15. Well, how
Yeah.
old are you?
My goodness. Such a forward young man. No, I'm 36.
Oh, okay, that added up. Well, I couldn't. I saw. Well, I saw like some things you had on your personal channel, and then I saw the things that you've
Mm-hmm.
recently done on your IMDb, and I wasn't sure like, okay, is this where it starts, or does it stretch back even further? Because it just starts at a certain point when you could be doing it. But how did you get started in it? Was it just something that you got doing in high school, and then
Um, I mean, my high school, I grew up in West Virginia, so my high school didn't really have like a film program. Um, but I always was interested in films. I was more interested in writing. I thought I'd be a novelist. But then I found movies, and then I saw Lord of the Rings, and I'm like, yeah, okay, I want to do that. Um, so Fellowship kind of converted me to like I want to direct. I don't want to just act because I did like community theater and whatnot when I was growing up.
okay,
I'm like I don't want to just be an actor. I want to make that magic happen. So,
was that acting the
but yeah,
first thing that you wanted to do, or and then you transitioned, or is it
it
something that like,
was.
okay,
Yeah, it was. I wanted to be an actor. Um, and I still, yeah, like you said, I still do a little bit of that here and there. But yeah, I focus mainly in behind the camera at this point.
why did you decide to switch more behind the scenes roles as opposed to the thing that initially got you interested into it?
I think it was the writer in me. I think I had stories to tell. And and it's easier to, act when you make your own opportunities. So then you get to be the characters you want to play rather than, you know, what other people are writing. So I think it was more like the writing aspect that was like, yeah, okay, like I want to take this a step further from just the acting on stage. I want to be the writer. I want to be the director.
Well, mine was a slightly different case because when I was growing up, in the early days of YouTube, the thing that was really popular was these stop motion Lego videos, and I was a big Lego guy.
Yeah.
Actually, I still have them in the back over there, and that's what got me interested in filmmaking. Is I started making those little stop motion videos, and I'm like, well, okay, listen,
Mhm.
I'm 13 years old, and I have a backyard in my mom's video camera, as opposed to, well, I could build whatever sort of world that I want, and then at least I'll have
Mhm.
that option. So like, I can kind of sympathize with that particular,
Yeah.
sentiment. But
Mhm.
well, I'm not sure if I want to get started on your acting, but I think I do want to get into your production design because, like sound, people in sound, there's not too many people who just focus on like art and production design, which is probably why you have a larger body of work that's listed. And because do you find yourself being in high demand?
Um, yes and no. I think it's common. I think it's I think it's a common mistake that a lot of whenever I see, for instance, posts like growing up, I see all of the technical
Mm-hmm.
jobs, and I rarely ever see, you might see hair and makeup, but you rarely ever see like costume designer and production designer because I feel like a lot of people and I may even be mistaken, but it feels like a lot of people are just like, okay, well, we'll just do that part together. We'll raid the actor's closet and we'll just shoot what's that location and kind of like judge some
Mm-hmm.
things here and there. So I feel like it's kind of like it's actually a little the opposite of that, where there's there's a less demand for it, I feel like, in indie sphere, and it's just like, if people are making their own stuff, they're generally trying to cop it together, themselves and whatnot. But on the bigger stuff, it's a lot easier to kind of get in with that. Yeah.
Can we narrow down a little bit, like explicitly, what you do more as a production designer? Because that role tends to be kind of a catch-all term, depending on what you're being asked to do within a particular project. Where do you find
Hmm.
yourself tend to be asked to do more specifically in terms of your role as a production designer? Like, what are the general expectations that people more often have more often than not?
Um, Loaded question. I think it's also depending on the scope of the project, the role kind of changes, because sometimes you're being asked to do an indie feature or a short film, and you're just a department of one. You might have like one person, other than yourself in the department, but there's a lot of projects that I've done where it's just that it is a catch-all. Like you do, you're planning the set deck, you're gathering all the props, which it goes beyond just doing kind of like the planning and the sourcing and the lookbooks and figuring and talking with the director of like, okay, well, uh, what's your vision, what can we kind of it goes beyond like more like the meetings and the budgeting and all of that. You have to like you're the on-set labor yourself, you're swinging the hammers, you're hanging the paintings,
As well as being
you're
your own
switching out the
producer, essentially,
curtains.
because normally you get asked to be able to, okay, you're going to take care of art. It's like, yeah, but is someone going to help me with? Not, no, you're going to do it yourself, as opposed to the producer for the rest of the crew. You get left alone.
I mean, not really. I mean, it depends what you mean as far as a producer, because I mean, um, producers tend to on smaller films, like the producers tend to be also the director, I feel like. So it's a lot easier to kind of like communicate like,
Often, yeah.
okay, well, like this is your vision. It's going to cost this amount of money. And then it's like, do we have that money or don't we? Can we scrounge up a little more? Or what do we need to cut out, like to actually make it
Mm.
work within the means?
What was the
Yeah.
most unrealistic request that you've gotten from a director or a producer, and that they were serious about you trying to achieve within their budget?
Oh gosh. Um, I
Too
don't
many to
know
sift
about
through.
something a lot. I don't know about like one particular example, but a thing that often happens, because you're planning, you have all these, you have everything that was mentioned in the script and in all the meetings, made, and you're addressing the set, and then, director comes to check out the set and give the stamp of approval before we actually start shooting, if you actually have the time to do that. Usually it's like day up, okay, yeah, I like it, or change this. um but a lot of times it happens a lot that you'll be asked for something like, do we have blah blah blah, and it's just like, no. No, I don't have that. And it could be just something really weird and off the wall, but sometimes like it's a kooky request and it's like, I give me 10 minutes and I'll come back to you and see if I can like pull that out of my ass.
Is there one example that specifically comes to your mind?
Usually, I can only think of like instances where I've been asked for like a graphic or like some different piece of art.
Does it tend
You
to be more of
know,
a time restraint or a like a budget and material restraint?
it's usually a time restraint because if you're being asked for something that you don't have on set, then it's just like, okay, I don't have time or the resources to make that in 15 minutes, nor do I have time to go buy something because we might be, 20 minutes away from the
Kind of
store that
like
might have it.
like prosthetics with
Yeah.
makeup.
Yeah.
Yeah, the
Yeah.
it's
I
like
feel your
takes like
pain.
45 minutes to just not just like put it on, but also like get everything together and everything. They're like,
Mm, yeah.
and they're like, can we change
It
one
takes
little
a
thing or
while.
something like that? And it's like,
Yeah. And it's like, nope.
do we have time to redo all of it?
Yeah. Do you have 45 minutes?
hmm
Yeah.
What is there a department that you find that ends up getting more time than they need, as opposed to like departments like yours where they don't get enough time at all? Because
More
I'm
time
thinking about all the, like the
like
time
on
spent.
set.
There's a leak somewhere, usually in the production, about where time is actually getting allocated, which is what backs up things when a problem actually occurs. So that's sort of the intention behind the question.
Um, I mean, if we're talking on set,
Yeah.
I mean, there's an ongoing, I feel like, usually friendly, but sometimes not so, depending on the person, a feud between cinematographers and production designers.
Yep.
Because, everybody wants the fancy camera and the lenses and do these fun like camera movements and whatnot, but it's always like I kind of always come back to the like, that's great, but are you shooting a white wall?
Mm-hmm.
Or did you give me time to like you know, dress the space and whatnot? And I think, I mean, as far as like different departments getting time over another, um, I think it depends on the production. Because you'll sometimes get uh DPs, even sometimes directors that spend a lot of time on, the blocking, which they should, or adjusting lights or whatever not. And then you're not supposed to get in the way when you need to like adjust things, in art department. You can't
Mm-hmm.
like get in the way, but then it's like some sets run so quickly that um you're working on top of each other or you have to take turns and not everybody might get to take their turn. So when it comes time for, oh, the lights are finally set and I can step into frame, I have like 20 seconds to adjust something and I have to like hop in and out very quickly. So you just kind of like as you gain kind of like experience, you kind of see what kind of set you're on and what kind of time you're going to be allotted and you kind of quickly learn when you can sneak in, when other things are happening, and when to get out of the way, and like when you're actually going to have time. You
It
just
sounds like
kind of
some
like
director bit you
learn.
on set or something. That's what it feels like.
You work
Like,
with a
I'm
lot
so
of
terrified to not disturb anything, and I'm like, who traumatized you?
and it's not usually the director. It'll usually be like your AD or
Ah, well, yeah,
the
AD.
DP, because the DP needs to communicate with the lighting team and whatnot. And if you're in the shot, like frame it, redoing something, of course they can't do their job. So you just kind of like you have some people that are nice about it and others that aren't so nice about it. And it's like, well, we all need to do the thing when we're on
Mm-hmm.
an indie set because we're not going to have time after you're done. So,
To be fair, though,
yeah.
if your AD isn't always pissed off at something, he's probably not a very good AD.
I think that's a common misconception. I don't know. I've worked with a couple ladies that keep their cool.
Well, they're always having to, because there's always something going wrong. That way, if a good AD is always able to like pivot and shift on the foot to where something needs more focus in
Oh,
that time.
sure, sure. And I think the best ADs can do that without being an asshole. I think there's a common misconception that ADs have to be an asshole. Um, and I don't think that's true.
Well, I was just joking.
One person's opinion. Oh, I mean,
You
a
have you
lot of
have
people
you have
think
a
that.
close friend who's a really good AD, and that isn't an asshole.
I
That's probably
do.
what it is. That's exactly what I knew. That's what it was.
I love you,
There was
Victoria.
no way that you could come on here and not disagree with me on his behalf, or their behalf, or her behalf, or whatever.
Her behalf,
Yeah.
Victoria. She's lovely.
hmm What's like the most how often are you doing the props yourselves, or are you normally getting some sort of help with that in terms of their creation or their accumulation?
Oh, props.
Yeah.
It kind of on indies especially. It kind of comes together with set deck. Generally, like props is a sub department within the art department that you'll have a department head working on that side of things, and then you just communicate and make sure that everything's cohesive. But it happens a lot just because of just budget reasons. It's like you might. I think the common amount of people that I'll normally get like on an indie feature is probably, counting myself, probably between 3 and 4 people.
Mm.
So I'll have but we're all kind of doing everything together. We might have somebody that's just like, okay, well, you focus on props, but I'm still going to be over here. Like, if I find a thing, like, I'll let you know. And then we work you have to work together when you have so few people.
How would you describe your process for being able to address the director's creativity, and how he wants to approach a particular scene to look or either flow? Because whatever you end up doing as a production designer, you're also working with cinematography to make sure that it's set up in
Mm-hmm.
a place where lighting is actually really, really good. And there's a large synergy between you and the cinematographer in terms of not just how you set the scene, but also how you light it, because one thing goes off of the other.
Yeah.
And that ends up being often the thing that takes the most amount of time that I think
Mm-hmm.
directors don't necessarily account for when it's on set. If
Yeah.
if someone is
Yeah.
trying to get into production design, what do you think you would tell them in terms of how to approach your job with appropriate amount of efficiency? Because there's a lot of creativity can sometimes cause a jam when it comes to being efficient, because you're getting so many possibilities that you could do. So there's a balance between like
Mm-hmm.
just the job and the more artistic style of the job.
Yeah. Okay. This is a loaded question.
I've
So
got like six more.
there were like three
We'll
questions
finish
in
this off
one, so
with a good gaslighting too.
I'll try to address everything. Just a light gaslighting. Um, yeah, I guess to answer those questions, um, kind of starting. It really comes down to you know, just communication, the first conversations and stuff that you have. Um, so what I like to do is I'll have a series of questions that I'll ask the director after I read the script for the first time. And I'll just kind of like make notes as I go of like, some of my ideas and whatnot. Um, but I like to ask the director, I think the first question I ask them is, do you have a color scheme in mind? Um, and because some directors know exactly what they want and others know it when they see it. Um, and some directors have no clue. They're still figuring it out, which is fine.
They're not even above water. They're just drowning.
Yeah.
I mean, that happens in indie filmmaking because like that's the first rung of people trying to see if this is something they want to do. You know, that's just inevitable.
Exactly. It's usually the people who are starting out, and they're they might not know how to work with a production designer, or
if it's like their first film,
and it's just like oh, this is exactly. So it's like you have that those are like the few and far between kind of people, but yeah, so it just starts with a series of questions like, do you have a color scheme in mind? And then like, a lot of indie projects will already have locations in mind. So I like to ask if they've done any scouting previously, if they have any locations locked yet. Because and then it's always like what's the budget, because you can't know what you're going to be able to do like scope wise unless you know how much money is involved in it. If you're doing a project that has a materials budget of a couple of thousand, you're not going to be able to do a whole lot. You're going to be working with the location and whatnot pretty heavily. And then that is going to be what informs how everything looks, and how maybe like the costume designer, I think, is more important in those cases, because it's like they're the ones then supplementing what's already there and what can't be changed. But yeah, so I just kind of like to open up with conversations like that, and that'll help inform kind of the plan that I then kind of get into. And then, I spend a lot of time on Pinterest and just Googling different, color schemes and different ideas. And, if they're like, oh, we want to do it, more colonial style, or I don't know. You kind of like, you get into like that kind of idea space, and just kind of like hone in on these keywords that they might have. If they want it, Pinterest, then it's going to be a little darker, and so you kind of like have to, and then it's kind of like working with the DP. So it's like, asking like, do you already have DP who's shooting this? And then I like to talk with them and kind of look at what they've already done to kind of like try to see what their style is. And I think a lot of indie directors, especially like the short films and whatnot that I've worked with, they haven't really had some of them. Some of them don't really think about how they're going to color grade it beforehand. Really? Yeah, some of them.
If they are, they're not others, not both DP and director, because DPs that are directing their own films, they know exactly what they want things to look like. Yeah. It's usually just like the either the directors or the writer-directors.
Yeah, exactly. It's usually more like writer-directors. I mean, a lot of them do, but you'll find some people that just like, they kind of like more find it in the edit of what they of how they want to color it, and then it's like, okay, well, that just negated all of the work that we did on set.
Or they don't color
That's happened to me.
They'll shoot it. I've seen some films that they just don't color it at all. Just raw. If they're just getting
I've seen
started.
Some that are.
They didn't even uncompress the footage. They just let it be like raw compressed.
Yeah. But yeah, it really just like, you just have to communicate with the different department heads. And, I've learned, two of the main conversations you're going to have with the DP is about practicals, and if there are windows in the room, what kind of window treatments or curtains or whatever not you're going to work with, which typically they want, shears. They want a little bit of that light, coming in, and you kind of get a feel for like exactly what off-white color and texture to get that looks best. Even though they're like, just get some options. Like, I know exactly the one that you're going to pick, though, so I'm going to get that one.
We had a conversation about this. This was pre-production. We already know.
Yeah.
Or directors just end up forgetting what whatever it is they discussed with you, because it was never like there's no like text over it. Like a lot of I don't know, maybe you may or may not be an exception to this, but a lot of people who are more focused on the physicality of art, people who like, either paint or, they do some type of woodworking, people who like, deal with actual material, they tend to be very verbal because they need to describe what it is they're actually touching because there's an extra sensory attached to it. However, directors, they tend to, ironically, not always be the most verbal in terms of the way that they communicate. And so there ends up being this disconnection between what they think they said and what actually was said, or even if anything was said at all. And sometimes I can get a little hairy.
They've also got a lot of different things going on. They're thinking shot lists
That
and
is also true.
costumes, and like they've got a lot going on. So I feel like if it's not written down somewhere, because I have had some directors where it's like, oh, why did we go with this here? Well, you remember the tech scout we talked about this, that, the other thing, and you're like, oh yeah, okay. I've definitely had that happen.
The files are getting restored from their original hard drive.
Yeah, processing, buffering.
They get the update.
Yeah.
You've worked not just on shorts, but also a few features too, right?
Yeah, I've had a spread.
Other than like the quantity of work, what's are there any main differences that you have to consider when you're doing the production for a feature versus a short?
The bigger you get, the more paperwork.
Oof.
Um, I remember my first like really big job as a department head was working on the Wrong Turn reboot as the set decorator. And I shouldn't have been, but I feel like I was surprised at the amount of paperwork and just the amount of meetings. And I was like, it was definitely a learning experience. So I think the difference is just you have a lot more people you have to communicate with, and you have a lot more paperwork that comes with the job, like the bigger that it is, especially if you're a department head.
What are
Like
the extra
on
roles that
some
you
of
have
the
to interact
bigger
with?
shows. Like on like with Wrong Turn, working with the stunt team. Um, because like I feel like on a lot of short films, you don't really have a whole lot of um like the no budget short films, you don't really have the resources to like do, stunts and whatnot like that. And then, you'll usually like have your producers or whatever not, handle the picture cars and whatnot. So, depending on the needs of the production, you might have to talk with the picture car department, which is like a subclass of art department, or transpo. It's kind of like together. But then yeah, like working with the stunties, on like making sure that the set is safe with what the actors are interacting with. Um, those are the two that kind of come to mind. That I usually more work with when it's something bigger
But you were
as opposed to
You
a
were
short film.
specifically a set decorator, or were you the head of your
hmm
department as a production designer?
I was I was the set decorator, so I was below the production designer.
Okay. Were there any things that you noticed about the head honcho that you had to, you know, uh, not refer to? God, can't talk today. That you were under in order to, like, as a boss. What is there anything that you picked up from them in terms of how they handled having multiple people underneath them?
Goodness. She was I think it kind of just comes back to that communication part. Like she would hold I think it was like weekly meetings just within our department itself, just to make sure that everybody was kind of still on the same page. Um I think just about daily, I would kind of like go into her office and we'd kind of talk about, the needs of the day, how this sourcing this thing was going, like how are we doing on this, that, the other thing. And she'd meet with, our art coordinator who handled kind of like more budgeting and just keeping track of all the numbers and whatnot. And I'd see her meet with the set designer, because we had the foundation set on that. So they'd be talking about, like this design on this piece of thing. Maybe we should raise that, and
How much
so that
pettiness
was
have you
interesting,
witnessed
kind
in
of
terms
like.
of their creative differences between people?
I think
I
I
mean, it's
think
a
you
rather mean
definitely get
question,
that.
but sometimes it depends how. Not everybody gets along with everybody,
No,
And but at the end
um,
of the day, you do have a job to do, so there has to be some sort of resolution, no matter what.
yeah, I think I think it can happen, um, but and I think we've definitely all witnessed it. Um, but at the end of the day,
But not your AD friend
it's
ever.
really not at me.
Definitely not you.
Uh, uh, um, but yeah, I think it's just at the end of the day, even if you have a disagreement on something, at the end of the day, it's like what is within budget, what is possible. So, I mean, you have to come to a compromise if you're butting heads on something. And generally, it's, you know, the person in charge. So, if I'm butting heads, for instance, if I butt heads with a director on something and I think it should be one thing or the other, all you can do is just remind them of why you are suggesting something, and if they still decide to go with what they want, then it's like, okay, we've had the conversation, we'll do it this way because that's what they want. you know
Okay.
at the end of the day, it's their vision. I'm just here to help facilitate their art.
Well, that ultimately comes down to the responsibility of the people who are communicating with you, because if you can't just say,
Mm,
no, I don't like this, let's try something else. It's like, okay, well, now I don't have a direction. You have to actually, use your words and paint exactly the picture that you have in your head for the other people to be able to replicate. When you're for the set
mm.
decorator job, what was it? Run through time. Is that what was
Wrong
the name of
turn.
it?
It was the
Wrong
wrong
turn.
turn reboot.
Okay,
Yeah.
gotcha. Um, how often do you end up using tell me about your strategies for the actual workflow in terms of how you approach the creativity of setting up the environment. Sometimes people end up using like an object to start with, and then they'll build, their ideas based off of that one central object in the room, or they'll base it off of like a
Mm.
window and how that's set up. Do you end up like talking being a little bit clued in on how the shot's going to be composed beforehand, or do you try to decorate the set and then people will come in and try to see how they want to shoot it? Because I've seen directors work both ways.
Yeah, I was about to say it works both ways sometimes. So if you have access to a shot list, then that's great. Because it will definitely help you kind of know the main areas that you need to focus on. Because for me, it always starts with a location. Like, what's the canvas we're working with here? And then at that point, it's like, okay, what are the key things? Are there anything mentioned specifically in the script that have to be in this set? Um, and then you kind of get an idea for where those are supposed to be in the set. Because if it's not explicit in the script, like how the characters are interacting with the space, then through that's what I think the scouting is a really important thing for as well. Because not just on the tech scout, because the tech scout usually comes a little later, But like on your initial scouts and whatnot, you can kind of like walk through it with your director a little bit, and you'll both kind of like get ideas of like, oh, this is where the guitar can sit in the chair next to the window, and then your DP might get excited like, oh yeah, we can get like a nice spread of light like
You end up at a
from the
chicken or the egg
blinds.
scenario.
Yeah, so it just kind of depends, I think, like how your director and your DP work. Because you can come in like uber prepared of what you want to do, but if they wind up kind of like having different ideas of how they want to shoot and how the director kind of wants to block the actors and whatnot, or even on the day, if the actors come up with some ideas that kind of like makes the flow of the scene a little better, then it's you're kind of working within that space too. Because I've definitely had projects where I dress I always dress 360. I just assume that the shot list is a lie because I have been lied to in the past. I think I was just like, I look at it and I'm like, this is a great idea. I really hope that we do that, all of that. But you always have to
You're like verbally
anticipate
patting
that.
them on the head like little boys.
Yeah. Oh, good
Like,
job with
oh,
this
look at what
shot
you brought
list.
mommy.
Look at this. Look at this great
Mommy's so proud of
work.
you.
Yeah.
Good
Oh,
luck.
I really hope it stays that way. Because it's just but that sometimes it's not even their fault. Sometimes you get there on the day and you realize that a shot that you kind of planned on paper, it's just like writing. You could write something
Sure.
that works really great on paper, but then you actually get on set and it's like, oh, this isn't working. And the same thing I think happens with blocking and planning shots. Like you kind of get there on the day and it's like, oh, maybe we do need to do this a little wider. And then you do wind up seeing more of the room that you were told that, oh, we're not going to see that side of the room. And then, you're not prepared. You don't have anything to put on that wall, or you just have nothing interesting going on there. And you might have already established the room. So you can't just like take from stuff that's already there and put it over there. So it's like I've had that happen enough times where now I'm just like, nope, I'm just gonna dress the room, and then you can just that's always my plan. Like if we have the money, like I dress the entire room, and then they can just shoot over whatever which way they want.
What percentage of the time
Yeah.
would you say you have, the budget to actually do that though?
70/30.
Really?
I feel like we're 60/40. It's definitely not 50/50. I think I usually more have the means to dress everything that I need to. Because also now at this point, my kit is also a stock of different set deck items. Like I have a stock of paintings, a stock of different art pieces and stuff I can put on the wall that I know are safe and clear. I'm also a painter, so um
Okay.
oh, I lost your picture, um but
Actually,
yeah,
I
I
lost
guess if
yours
you can
too. Hold
still
on.
hear me,
I think
then
it
okay,
reconnected
that's
for some
weird.
reason.
Maybe I wonder if it's my Wi-Fi, and I will. Okay, never mind. There you are.
Oh, okay. You were sideways for
Can
a
you
second.
hear me? Okay.
I can, yeah.
Okay. um, but yeah, now I've built up kind of a stock, so now it's just kind of like, well, now I have a stock I can pull from. So it's gotten easier just because I might have that thing on hand. Like I have extra things on hand that I can just be like, I'll bring my metalwork art pieces in just in case we need them. So I'll have a few things on hand that maybe I don't put up on a wall. Um, because according to the shot list, they're like, okay, we're not going to see that side of the room, but having it prepared is always a good idea because you never know. You just never know.
What would you say is something that directors and cinematographers can, if they were to know ahead of time, would make things more efficient for both themselves as well as your job?
Um, I think I think sometimes people, and I think it's not just directors and DPs. I think some people in general probably don't realize how much time it can take to prep a set. Um, so um,
Mm-hmm.
yeah, I mean, so I guess it's just or just spitting out an idea of something. I always get antsy when uh directors, for instance, want to like recreate like a hospital set. Um, or or I read a script that's clearly like not written for the budget that I know they have. And I'm like, okay, that's gonna be hard to get, that's gonna be hard to get, that's gonna be hard to get. And these are always things that like I try to bring up in my first conversation. So I guess just like um knowing beforehand. I guess maybe it's just kind of realizing the the demands or the possibilities or the difficulties sometimes that are associated with getting some items and props and sets ready. They know it's not really for them to like it's not their job. Like why it's not their job to kind of like know the ins and outs of that. That's why they hire us. But at the same time, I think it's kind of like those, off the wall questions like on set, like, oh, would you happen to have blah blah blah? That's I think when you get that. But it's also like if you don't ask, then you'll never know. Because it's like, what if I do happen to have a baseball bat in my car that I just had for no reason? So um I'm mm, not sure if that answered the question, but it's really just like for instance, like I don't know all the ins and outs of what goes into camera department. I try to like sit sometimes I'll sit down with the DIT like on set and I'll just like watch his monitor and I'll ask questions like what does that mean? What does that abbreviation mean? What is that red thing blinking? I'm gonna choose my moments, because it's just like, I try to like watch and learn, and sometimes I'll even be like, oh, what lens are we on? Like, oh, okay, so that's how that looks according to that lens. And then you kind of like get a picture. So I guess like, if I'm doing that work of trying to learn. I guess maybe it's like kind of asking questions or being open to just kind of watching and learning. And I think a lot of times too, and hopefully it carries over into their next projects because there's sometimes when the demands of a project is so intense that at the end of the day, sometimes I'll get comments of just like, well, that was a lot. They asked you to do a lot. Yeah, yeah, thanks for noticing. Somehow we pulled it off. And so hopefully they kind of like look at those instances and kind of like put that in the back of their brain when they go on to the next projects of like, oh, I don't know, like we're
Mm-hmm.
gonna have, X amount of time to shoot this because I've seen this happen. Like this is going to take them, this long to probably do that. And and I have worked with DPs where it's just like, how long is this? How long do you think that's it's probably going to take you like 10 minutes left in here? Like, yeah, we're good. Yeah, 10 minutes is good. So you kind of like come up with a shorthand with some DPs who do see you and do understand the time it takes. Not all of them are like the me show and don't
Mm-hmm. Yeah.
understand. Like it's a nice spread.
What what was the hardest instance that looking back on it was the most difficult one to actually fix or get through?
Movie wise,
Yeah,
just
and why?
project in general. Oh
No, I
God.
mean specifically when it comes to there's always a rush. At some point, you don't either have the thing, you don't have enough time to go get the thing, or like there's something that you're being demanded of, and you're in a pinch. It's that pinch of being able to creatively solve something on the fly.
Oh goodness. To pluck one out of the ether.
Or is it just
Mm.
all trauma?
I'm just I'm just one big trauma response. Um, I don't know if this answers your question. I think the biggest moments might come from if something breaks. And you have to kind of come up with a solution, especially like if it's like there was one shoot, I think it was Bag of Lies, where we got very lucky. So it was a wide shot in one of the houses, like I think toward the end of the movie. It wasn't Matt and Claire's house, it was the other house. And there were these like glass sconces on the wall. There were like three of them stacked. And between setups, I think we had several setups in that scene. Um, and there was in between one setup, somebody kind of like that, you know, people lean on walls.
Mm-hmm.
So it's nobody's fault. But you know, he like leaned back into the wall, and suddenly everybody hears this shatter sound.
Oh gosh.
And you know, we look around, and it's like, and that bottommost sconce had been, you know, bumped off the wall, and it shattered, and those were, and it was one of those instances where we were kind of like working with the homeowner,
Oh, this was the
and
homeowner's property they broke.
yeah, something one at least one thing always gets broken, and you're always just like, okay, is it going to be an expensive thing or a not so expensive thing?
How often is it the
um
PA? How often is it the PA? I want to know.
I don't think I've ever seen myself a PA break something. um
But other than you.
I don't want to single out the department, but there is one department that I feel like is the culprit. But it's not the
This feels like
PAs.
Harry Potter, he who shall not be named.
I don't want to take digs at anybody. Because it always is just, you know, it's accident and
I've seen it
happenstance.
happen too,
But
and it's normally like
yeah.
somebody who's never been on a film set though, which is usually the PA.
Oh, okay. Yeah, yeah. Anyway, but like yeah, it was the homeowner's property. Um and there was no replacement. These were very specific, you know, triangle shaped, you know, sconces. Like they were very interesting looking. So I was just like, oh, those are interesting. Let's just leave those on the wall. Because it's one of those, you know, instances where it's like, oh, don't put any more holes in the walls. Like you have to just use the existing hardware. And it's like, I don't really have like interesting like three things to put here.
Hmm.
Um, Nothing that I liked anyway. And but luckily, at the point at which it broke, um, the setups we had after that did not feature that wall. So that was an instance where we kind of we we got lucky because otherwise there would have been a huge continuity error.
Right. You got all the shots. Was it like a prominent thing that you had actually been paying attention to in the rest of the shots, and that's why?
I mean, you definitely saw it in the background. It wasn't like the focus of something, but it was, you know, it was there. It was definitely there, and then it wasn't.
There's probably been times too where it's been the complete opposite, where they've had to move on to an area that they had to come back to, you know, and then they had to
Hmm.
rearrange how they were going to shoot it because of something like that.
Yeah. But it happens sometimes. But I feel like Especially like on the indie scale, you don't have time to go redo something like that.
You just have to accept the
So,
blow, essentially.
yeah, it's just like, okay, well, that's gonna be a continuity error on IMDb.
Hmm. How do you know a
You
project is worth your time?
um,
Because I'm sure it took a
goodness.
little bit of calibrating
Um,
in the first beginning of the years when you started getting involved in the community.
yeah, and
Most people are great though, from my
I
experience.
think it's a combination of, do I like the script? Um, and honestly, what's the pay? Um, so it's always a combination of that, because it's like, sure, we all want to be artists, but we don't want to be starving artists. So even if there's a script that you might not be 100% in love with, but it pays well, you might need to do it. And that's just the game. You're not going to love everything you work on. But hopefully you learn and challenge yourself with each thing. Because it's like, there have been some scripts that, I don't personally, like the script, but then it's like, oh, well, doing this location or this location, I've never done that before, so that's going to be interesting. So you get
Mm.
excited in a different way, even if you might not like the story. Um, and even if, even if it might not pay well, then it's just like, oh, well, I've never done this before. So this will be a cool, like, oh, let's see if I can do that.
Well, I mean,
So,
there's always a first of whatever first location you've been on to try to dress it different, time of day that
hmm
you have to dress it because that plays in,
yeah.
obviously.
hmm
And there's you have to know what the variables are eventually in order to justify being able to spend your life doing this. Because if you're doing what you love, you know, you have to
hmm
also at a certain point know how to protect the purest way or the way that you learn to have your cake and eat it too as much as possible.
Yeah.
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 What kind of uh, directors do you think are the best to work with when it comes to doing their film as a production designer?
Um, I don't know about the best, but I guess I would have a preference. Because to each their own, however they want to work. So I don't know if I would classify it as the best. But I do prefer working with directors that kind of have an idea in mind of some sort of vision. Like they come with ideas. They come with, oh, I thought maybe this would be cool to do. And it's like, okay, well, that's copyrighted, but let's figure out a way to work a version of that art piece in.
Mm-hmm.
So it's like, I like, because then that shows me that they've kind of like done their homework, and they're as excited about the look of it as I am, rather than the directors that kind of like come to me and like, just what are your ideas? I'm curious to know what you think.
Because I
Because then
hadn't thought
it's
about
just like,
this.
yeah, and it's just, it can come off that way. Like sometimes I feel like it turned out that they just want to know my first impressions, which is usually kind of how it goes. Like in my introductory like interviews and stuff for a job as a director, they'll kind of ask what I think first. Um, and I think that's a good way for them to kind of see if I'm a good fit for them. And then I kind of ask, vice versa. It's like, okay, well, yeah, this is kind of what I was thinking. This is the impression I got. Like, did you have something in mind? So I really like it when there's a back and forth, instead of um, just, one person kind of dealing with that side of it and coming up with ideas. And I mean, the other side of the fence there is, sometimes you'll work with a director that's very, very much like knows exactly what they want, and sometimes it feels like, oh well, what am I even doing here? You know what you want. I'm just here
Mm.
facilitating. Like I'm not your production designer. I'm just dressing for you. I'm you're not listening to any ideas. Like I've had that a couple of times.
Was it?
So
What were there
you
suggestions
know,
like at least like good? You're like, oh well, I mean, I like this. This is cool. It works. What am I doing here? As opposed to like, you know, something that they wanted to do, but you knew was objectively not the best way to go about it. So not only is there a creative difference, there's also a level of obstinance that you're seeing that you're gonna have to deal with. Is that what I'm hearing?
um, sometimes, not all the time. Um, if I feel very strongly about something of like, I know you wanted to do blah blah blah, but what do you think about doing it this way or that way? And so it's always great when you can kind of like have that conversation, but it does happen sometimes that yeah, like some directors will just be like, no, let's just do it this way. Okay.
Mm, gotcha.
And if you're paying me, all right, let's go.
Is it
You
easier to
got it,
take?
Bob.
Is it easier to take BS when you're getting paid for it?
Oh yeah, 100%. I think that's true of all jobs.
It
I'm sure
is.
that
It is.
the people working a 9 to 5, um, sometimes just have to take it.
Mm-hmm.
So
For you personally,
I
what
think
is the most rewarding aspect of your job in filmmaking, in the roles of filmmaking specifically?
filmmaking specifically, when it comes to production design itself, I think the most rewarding aspect is when um either you're on set or you're viewing the film, and someone has a comment of like, oh, that looks really good. If somebody's like complimentary of your work, like that's very rewarding, especially if you had a tough shoot. um because sometimes it's just like, okay, whatever, but we're all artists and we're all like our own worst critic, and it's like, is this good? Am I good at my job? So I think it's always rewarding to kind of like to be seen. I think we're all a little vain when it comes to our art. We want it to be good, and we're very critical of it, and we're like, I guess
Well, a
it's
lot of artists have
okay.
main character syndrome too, so
Yeah, some of them. But like filmmaking in general, I think it also comes down to kind of like the audience thing. Like whenever I write and direct something, it always comes down to like, well, I like it, and that's rewarding. Like I did a thing, like I made this thing. But it's always, the icing on the cake when somebody else actually like connects with it, and you get to have, if you go to a film festival with it, you get to have that conversation with somebody who just really loved it.
mm.
So I guess like in the end, the reward is being able to kind of, yeah, come back to the conversation of just like, seeing somebody's excitement, or just, yeah, just making the art. And sometimes I have a lot of fun in prep. Like prep is my favorite phase of production. So I get really invested in the planning process, and like to go from the plan to then see the set finished on the day we're shooting. It's just like, oh, we made it.
Mm.
Oh, we made that happen. Like that's very rewarding as well, to finally see it, kind of come to life with the actors, and seeing them interact with the set and the props and whatnot. It's just like, oh yeah, we made it.
So like it's the pleasure of being a part of the quilt instead of being,
Yeah,
yeah.
being part of the quilt. I like that. Yeah.
You should go home and write that on a like crochet that on a pillow.
I'm not very good at crocheting.
Mm-hmm. Well, it's been great getting to know you. It was nice to meet you finally, because I think I've seen you around at like a few places. Well, I remember you from Winter Film
Yeah.
because you were up on stage.
Hmm.
Did you assist with do you assist with putting on Winter Film, or is it something that you're frequently asked to help out with?
Yeah. I've been helping Kent organize winter film since 2018.
Oh, okay.
Uh, so yep, I've been up there and helping Kent put that show on for, let me do quick math, 7 years, 8 years, 7 years now.
Hmm. Well, I mean, it was this last year was my first time attending because I had some friends who had some material in there, and so I went and saw, and then
Hmm.
and then you circle back somehow. Because do you have any final thoughts you want to leave with the audience?
Oh gosh. You know, if you want to get into production design, just have fun. At the end of the day, if you're not enjoying this industry, especially with how few and far between the jobs have gotten, then and your heart's not in it, then you're not gonna make it. So just, yeah, just really be invested and say yes as much as possible. Because I've worked some free gigs and I've gotten some great friends that I still know 10 years later, and now we're working paid jobs. So it's like you never know what opportunity is going to be the right opportunity. So just trust your gut.
Well, Stephonika, thanks for coming on. I appreciate it.
Yeah, this is great. Thanks for having me.